and welcome to this first ever episode of Rotted Recap. Well, kind of. I've called videos in the past Rotted Recap with alliteration. There's only so many options, but nevertheless, I think that this is actually the format that best fits that term, and I've only done a couple of those. So, whatever. Doesn't matter. This is Rotted Recap from here on out. I'm going to be trying to do this as a what I watched in the month of blah on the first of every month. Obviously talking about the month previous. So in the past, I haven't really been that diligent about recording my watches. If I watch something for a review, then obviously it gets hit up on the channel. Otherwise, it's just been kind of the stuff that I watch for myself. But nevertheless, I have been told that there is interest in me doing these kind of videos. I know other creators have. It's not really my bag. I haven't really been watching a lot of other creators do what I watched in the month of. But if you want it, let it not be said that I will do my best to accommodate. So I have been more diligent over the month of January in recording what I've been watching. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right into it. Let's take a look at what I've been watching for January 2022. All right, so this is my Letterboxd. I'm going to take my glasses off because I got to shine from the light. Anyway, so this is my Letterboxd. If you're not following me on Letterboxd, and if you want to, it's just Rotted Reviews. Feel free to hit me up there, follow me, what have you. So the first watch of the month was the first watch of the year. And in doing so, it was also kind of, what kind of pressure am I putting on myself? It's the first watch of 2022. It wound up being Harry Potter. The 20th anniversary special came out on HBO Max, and I was like, yep, that's gonna happen. So I was pretty happy to watch that. That was a good one. And then followed up by Reno 911, The Hunt for QAnon. I couldn't not. I thought both of them were very good in their own very unique ways. After that, I got reacclimated with the Scream franchise, and I watched Scream 1 through 4. And I'm not entirely sure why I did, because I knew that because it was theaters only, I wasn't going to be able to watch it. For those of you that don't know, I am in a rural area. Getting to a theater that has major releases is very problematic for me. Like, it's about an hour and a half drive each way. And in the wintertime, that becomes especially problematic. And when there's a pandemic on, it's compounded. So theatrical releases for me aren't an option. Not really. I guess, in the strictest sense, they are, but responsibly, it's just not. So yeah, I'm kind of stuck, and I hate that. That's a conversation for another time. But yeah, that I knew that I wouldn't be able to watch the new Scream, but never, I wanted to get reacclimated anyway. So I watched 1 through 4, and in between there, I watched the 2016 Ghostbusters. I also watched Don't Look Up and Red Rocket. After that, Ghostbusters Afterlife finally hit the VOD market. Again, theater. And Lamb. I was super happy to watch Lamb. That was a weird one. I was kind of on the fence about whether or not to do it as a review for the channel. And ultimately, I just decided not to. But, maybe I still will. But, I enjoyed it. I thought it was very visually very engaging. It was the little lamb kid was adorable. There was a lot to like about it, and it just was a little bit flat in terms of coherent, linear story. But nevertheless, I still found myself just captured by it. And then there was a lot of catching up on things, stuff that just was kind of off my radar. So Upgrade was one of those. I kept hearing people talk about Upgrade. I kept seeing GIFs and clips and so forth. So I was like, okay, finally pull the trigger on Upgrade, and I'm very glad that I did. That was a great one. The Girl Who Got Away was a review of mine. And then Sneakers with Sidney Poitier passing. It's one of my favorite movies of his. Not in terms of quality, but just in terms of enjoyment and with my personal history of cinema. Sneakers was a movie that I remember watching as a kid, or at least growing up. 92, I was 12. And it's just one of the, better, more intelligent espionage, caper kind of movies out there. It really had some interesting almost realistic, much more realistic than a lot of movies go to in terms of old school hacking kind of methodologies, phreaking like phone hacking. And a lot of it was based on reality. Like the Whistler character was based on somebody that I believe was blind, but I do know that from what I've read, he actually could hear and mimic tones, telecom tones. The strange color of your body's tears. That was weird. That was really weird. That was interesting. That was our first watch party request on the Rotted Reviews Patreon. Yeah, that one, I had no idea what to expect. And we were all just kind of like, what are we even watching here? But it was a fun watch party as far as a movie itself goes. That was really out there. Yeah, I'm on a visual level, it was gorgeous. But God, try making sense of it. Just try. The Brain was another, it was a request that was done for a review, so that was a review I did. Amityville Uprising, of course, the Amityville movie. Of course, I gotta, watch the Amityville movies. Marvel Eternals, again, it was a, catching up on VOD, now that it's on VOD kind of thing. All right, The House That Jack Built. That was an interesting opportunity for me because what I did was I mentioned earlier that I've been trying to catch up on some of the blind spot things. Well, what I did was I was kind of flirting around with maybe having a new segment for the channel, and I'm still not entirely sure how that would pan out. But this was kind of the precursor to it, where I assembled a list of 100 movies that I'm really going to try and get through by the time the year is over. And a lot of it is classics. A lot of it is, it's just stuff that I really want to watch and I never have, and it's been bugging me. And then I would throw it up on the random wheel, guesser kind of thing website. And the idea that I had for this segment was that I would spin the wheel, I would watch the movie, and then I would record myself watching the movie and provide kind of just truncated commentaries as the movie goes on, and then talk about it, and then just very, very condensed breakdown as I'm watching it and as I'm filling this gap of knowledge and experience, and then maybe do 3 of them in a video, like the 3 ones that got away from me kind of thing. To kind of try that out and do the training wheels, I did that. I recorded myself, and it a whole different thing. But The House That Jack Built was the movie that I did for that. And really interesting watch. I'm used to Von Trier at this point, and I'm used to him digging my guts out and leaving them on the side of the road. And this really didn't do that. It was very interesting. It was very gruesome, and it was it didn't feel like a Von Trier film once the end credits were rolling. Like, there's a very distinct sense of despair and depression that I go through after watching things like Dancer in the Dark, Antichrist, Dogville, Manderley, things like that. But House of Jack Built was just it was gruesome in the moment, but it didn't affect me afterward. An Ideal Host, that was a fun one that, a very new and very small indie release that I was happy to review for a friend of mine on the Spooky Astronauts Discord. He's a member there. Yeah, it was a fun watch regardless. So I was happy to do a review of that one. The Curse of Humpty Dumpty. So this is a watch that I did with Jay from Bloodbath and Beyond. I'm a member of his Patreon as well, and this was a watch party that he had on the Bloodbath and Beyond channel. So that was it was a stupid fun watch in its own very awful way. Visually it actually had some an adept tone to it, but that doesn't make it a good movie necessarily. It just made it a little bit better than we were actually expecting, because it's more a testament to what we were expecting more than what we got. C for Me, that was a fun one. Again, I kind of weighed whether or not to do that for the channel. We need to talk about Kevin. He is another one of filling in that gap. Actually, several of these coming up here. We need to talk about Kevin, 12 Years a Slave, The Man Who Knew Too Much, were all parts of that 100 movies that I'm trying to get through. The Greasy Strangler was the second Rotted Reviews watch party that we did, and that was an experience. I had never seen it before. 2.5 stars you see there, but you also see that I didn't like it. If you've never seen The Greasy Strangler, it's not one that I would recommend. Man, I don't even know how to put it. If you're with friends and you don't mind losing your appetite, it could be a fun watch. How about that? That's about as good as I can get for that. It's so weird. It's so unique. It's so gross. And, hats off to it for all of that. But it didn't make for an enjoying, a great deal of mirth behind the watch. I don't look on that hour and a half somewhat fondly. I'm happy that I watched it with friends. Way more than I'm happy that I watched it. I'm just with you, and the Neon Demon were also requests that were made of me for the channel, so I did those. February, I'm going to be trying to focus a little bit more on new releases that I can do for the channel. So things like where I showed like Lamb and See For Me, where I didn't do those as reviews. February, when I do watch the movies, I am going to be doing a little bit more in terms of new VOD releases and such, and more popular stuff for reviews on the channel. January was a very weird transitional month in terms of what I watched and what I put out as videos, because there are new segments, and I'm still trying to figure out on a timeline and on a workflow level what can actually be on the calendar without oversaturating the content, because that's always a risk too. So, Tremors, and a lot of it. I obviously did the big Tremors video. If you haven't seen that, I urge you to. It's honestly, I don't say this lightly, but it is one of the most proud videos. I mean, I will often make a video and not necessarily feel this way about it, but I am extremely proud of how that one turned out, just on every level. I missed a couple cuts, I missed a couple things, but overall that was a great video. A lot of fun, a lot of work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into that one. But yeah, I watched a lot of Tremors. I obviously on Letterboxd they're not going to have all of the TV shows that I watched, which I made a little list over here, but they did have The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window, which was a fun watch. It was really peculiar for me in that it was just this kind of simultaneous shifting of tones. It was silly. It obviously had some very, very silly things going on in it. But the seriousness, the dark tones that it took, it leaned into those so hard that sometimes I almost forgot about the silliness, and I became invested in the storyline, and then the silliness would happen, and I would just be really, oh, okay, right, yep, this is a comedy. It was a very, very strange, double road to walk. And I know that doesn't make sense, but, maybe you can clean my thoughts from my words on that one. Yeah, I forgot to add one here. So Detention and Severance were also the last movies that I watched for ranking, or for requests and reviews. The Tragedy of Macbeth, that was a super, super interesting one for me. I had watched and absorbed and read a fair bit of Shakespeare, but somehow, some way, Macbeth was always one that eluded me. I had seen movies about Macbeth. I had seen Haunting at Cawdor. I had seen Ghostlight, which were both movies, very interestingly, that were surrounding horror movies that were surrounding a setting of a theater showing Macbeth. And the weird thing is, even though they have nothing to do with each other, not on any level, plots are totally different from one another, they both star Cary Elwes. Cary Elwes is in 2 movies about haunted theaters putting on a production of Macbeth. Ghostlight and A Haunting at Cawdor. So I don't recommend. I don't entirely recommend checking them out. They're not great. Haunting at Cawdor is a lot worse than Ghostlight. So if you're gonna check out one of them, check out Ghostlight. And then it was an interesting one because I finally got caught up on the story of Macbeth, and I thought it was a very interesting kind of villainous tragedy, and it was aesthetically just so gorgeous, with Joel Cohen taking over the directorial reins, and in his solo effort, the aesthetics, the set, All of it was just beautiful. The black and white nature, the harsh lighting, the aspect ratio, everything was just so perfect in the storytelling for it. I was flabbergasted. And the acting, oh my God, Denzel Washington was just phenomenal. And, big shout out to Frances McDormand. Great as always, but holy shit in this. Sorry, I'm really trying not to swear, so I'm going to have to bleep that. That's another thing I'm changing. I'm trying not to swear in my videos anymore, or at the very least bleep them out. And then, but the other reason that Tragedy Macbeth was kind of weird for me was because it took 6 attempts to watch it. Usually I can sit down and I can watch a movie just fine. And it's not like my attention span kept drifting. Stuff kept coming up. It was the weirdest, most bizarre set of circumstances, but I just could not get through a Tragedy Macbeth without some external influence happening. My phone would go off. Somebody would need computer repair work on the side. Just something would happen, and I'd have to pick it up later. So last night, I made it a point. I'm like, shut everything off, shut everything down. I'm finishing this movie so that I can add it to this list so I can talk about it in this video. And I finally did. I finally finished it. And then because I had everything shut off, and because to me, it's been a hell of a time. It's been a little bit weird out there. If you haven't noticed, a little weird. I went ahead and tossed on The Man Who Knew Too Little. I finished watching The Man Who Knew Too Much for the first time, which was a great movie. I think February I'm going to be making a point to watch like North by Northwest and continue on with the the Hitchcock thing. But I have seen The Man Who Knew Too Much. I have seen The Man Who Knew Too Little many, many times, and I think that it's vastly underrated. It's a wonderful, silly, silly comedy, and it was exactly what I was in the mood for as a, seriousness of the world, brush off, let's just have some stupid, silly laughs. And The Man Who Knew Too Little was awesome for that. So it was a nice way to kind of finish off the month, finish off the evening, and enter into February on a bit of a smile. So that was kind of my intention with that. The other things that I've been watching as far as TV shows go is been watching a lot of MASH. Sometimes I'll toss on some stuff in the background as far as like, jazz music, lounge music, YouTube videos on ambient environments, things like that. And sometimes I will toss on comfort shows like MASH. So I'm watching a lot of MASH. Peacemaker and Archive 81. Archive 81 was a good one. Peacemaker's been fantastic. It's been silly. It's been depraved. It's been a wonderful. It's so James Gunn, and I love it for that. Archive 81 was a great watch. It was scary, fascinating, and for me personally, I thought it was a great watch as an experience because I can't always. It's not that I can't. How best to phrase this in a way that's not going to get me in Dutch, or in a way that's not going to misrepresent anybody. Having a watch engagement side by side with my partner is not always the easiest thing. Our schedules don't always line up. Our interests don't always line up. And oftentimes, they'll have their watch and I'll have mine. Archive 81 was a situation where I went to them and I said, would you like to watch this? Here's kind of the premise. It just came out. And they were on board. So it was something that we got to watch together and enjoy together. And they were hooked. Like we got, one episode through it. And you're like, yep, more. So it took us 2 nights to get through it. At some point I had to sleep. So we broke it up into 2 or 3 nights. Pretty sure 2. But great watch. Archive 81. I do recommend it. So there we go. That's what I watched in January. I don't see any point in kind of rambling on continuously. So I'm just going to go ahead and end this video. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you on the 1st of March, where I'll talk about February. If you did enjoy this video, if you do want to see more of it, I do need that kind of feedback, because as I do these new segments, it helps to have that kind of feedback. So if you did enjoy this, please leave a comment below. Click like, that'd be great, but a comment would really, help kind of flesh things out as far as interest in continuing with these kind of series further down the line. So take care, everybody. Talk to you soon. Have a great day.